Welcome to AfterClass. I am your host, Anantya. AfterClass is a Gen Z news show. Think of it as CNN, but if you replace the entire editorial staff with Instagram influencers. This is the weekend edition, so we're going to keep things light and breezy. You know, the kind of breezy where you can almost forget that college app said you in 2 weeks, the Common App still doesn't work properly, and that your entire future depends on whether your recommender has figured out what a PDF is. So today, we're covering college news and some gentle topics. Things that you would probably know if you were too busy gaslighting a school counselor into bumping up your predicted grades. Let's start with something that you should probably be paying attention to: college application deadlines. Earlier this week, we hit the UCAS deadline for Oxford, Cambridge, law and medicine courses in the UK. At the same time, several top US universities had their early action deadlines. Fun fact, when King Charles attended Cambridge in the 70s, he became the first heir to the English throne to earn a university degree, which technically makes him a first-gen college student. By the time this episode drops, those deadlines will have already passed, and hopefully you knew that already, and you're not relying on a YouTube binge to keep your college dreams alive. But if you did miss the deadline, the only option is to wait another year to apply again. But hey, if you feel bad about the wait, just remember, King Charles waited 70 years to get his job, and even now, he's still overshadowed by his mom and her corgis. And while I would love to spend the rest of this episode discussing the various absurdities of royal life, we need to move on, because unlike King Charles, we don't have 70 years. Next up, the US News & World Report released their 2026 national rankings. Now, if you haven't heard of these rankings before, they are the #1 source for determining the best colleges in the US, and also a great way for my Indian relatives to brag about the colleges that their sons are going to this fall. And we have some really spicy updates for you this year. Ivy Leagues such as Cornell, Brown, and Dartmouth, still out of the top 10. Shameful. Princeton, MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, the usual suspects, continue to occupy the top 5, with a consistency in lineup that hasn't been seen since the Jonas Brothers reunited. UC Berkeley was crowned the nation's top public university, but only because it swapped places with UCLA. Meanwhile, UChicago jumped to number 6 after climbing 5 spots, while Caltech fell out of the top 10 entirely. Now, does it make sense that schools can yo-yo 5 spots in a single year? Of course not. Because despite what you might have heard, these rankings are far from objective. For starters, one of the most important elements of the ranking is a peer assessment, which, if you haven't guessed by now, is highly subjective. But it still accounts for a whopping 20% of a college's overall score. These rankings have also faced criticism in the past for focusing too much on inputs, meaning the kinds of students, faculty, and resources at the university, while ignoring student outcomes, graduating students from all backgrounds with manageable debt, and setting them up for postgraduate success. To their credit, in 2023, the US News made some major changes to the methodology. Now, more than 50% of a college's ranking depends on student outcomes, such as earnings after graduation, as well as measures of upward mobility, such as graduation rates for low-income students. As a result of these changes, public schools such as UMich and UC Berkeley have shot up in rankings, while certain private schools have dropped as many as 30 places. When Vanderbilt's ranking fell from 13 to 18, their chancellor described the rankings as deeply flawed and misleading. He argued that when US News eliminated the inputs we had discussed, such as the share of faculty who have attained the highest degrees in their field, or average class size, they removed key measures of academic quality. He also argued that rankings are misleading because much of the calculations are done on a dataset of students who receive federal financial aid. Since Vanderbilt's generous financial aid policies mean that relatively few students need federal aid, many of the outcomes are excluded from the calculations altogether, ironically lowering Vanderbilt's standing in those metrics. While many college administrators have gripes about rankings, they have been forced to make peace with them. And the reason for that is that we, the public, relish rankings. If that were not the case, there's no way BuzzFeed could make money writing articles such as the 25 hunkiest Egyptian protesters. And that is a real article. And for schools that lack the cachet of a Princeton or a UC Berkeley, a ranking can be among a school's most powerful marketing tools. A simple, seemingly objective statistic college administrators can print in their brochures to boost student enrollments. While rankings are useful in some ways, they cannot come close to measuring the one thing that is most important about a college education: the experience a student has inside and outside the classroom. Rankings are great at telling you how many students graduated on time, or what salaries they earned. But they tell you nothing about how much the students enjoyed studying there. And without taking into account the student experience, it is difficult to answer how much value a university really adds. At the very least, you should know that rankings are informative. They provide neither the full picture for the things that they claim to measure, nor account for the several important things that will actually determine your college experience. Meaning, a high college ranking is very much like a suspiciously cheap shawarma roll. It may look attractive, but you probably want to ask a few questions before deciding to take a bite. Earlier this week, John Clark, a professor at UC Berkeley, received the Nobel Prize for Physics.
Well, I received a phone call at 9 minutes past 2 in my morning.
How wonderful is this?
Yeah. And I thought, well, this is obviously a junk call. And
First of all, shame on the Swedish people for calling this poor old man at 2 a.m. Do they not know about time differences? Second, I love how he thought it was a prank call, because this is clearly not the first time somebody has called him in the middle of the night with some unbelievable news. Not to be rude, but he both looks and sounds like the prime demographic for a social security scam. So world-changing science is happening. But did he hear about it? Probably not. Because at the same time, Taylor Swift released a new album. And, well, it wasn't great. The artist has received criticism from everything from lazy AI-generated teasers to her blatant hypocrisy, where she spends one line talking about how little she cares about money, and the next about staying in Paris hotels, where each night sets you back more than $2,000. Taylor is also clearly in an unfettered capitalist era, with the album launch being accompanied by pricey limited edition sweaters, physical CDs including songs that most artists would release for free, and even a movie. And finally, there was a bold but deeply awkward attempt at raunchiness. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for artists embracing and expressing their sexuality. But a 30-something Taylor writing like a bored English major saying how many euphemisms for sex she can slip into a final term paper, it's not exactly giving. Here's a snippet of the lyrics from a song called Wood, for which I will now do a dramatic reading. Forgive me, it sounds cocky. He armatized me and opened my eyes. Redwood tree, it ain't hard to see. His love was the key that opened my thighs. Girls, I don't need to catch the bouquet to know a hard rock is on the way. And if you still haven't figured out what's common between a redwood tree, hard rock, and a magic wand, the answer is they're all metaphors for Travis Kelce's penis. When your billionaire asks fans to buy the same album 8 times, and that album is frankly mediocre, and then when you pay for the VIP meet and greet tickets just to find out it's just a reading of a poem about Travis Kelce's penis, it's not a great fan experience. So, what have you learned today? College deadlines are brutal. College rankings are faker than the Tooth Fairy, but we have to believe that they're real. Nobel Prizes are still handed out at 2 a.m. by prank call vibes. And Taylor Swift is proof that late-stage capitalism will wring you dry, even if the product is a lukewarm metaphor for Travis Kelce's anatomy. And that's AfterClass, the weekend edition. Good luck out there. And if you miss your deadline, just remember, even King Charles had to wait his turn.